The night Lin Meiyun died, snow was falling through the broken roof of a house that had once been called her home. She was 58 years old, but hunger had hollowed her into something that looked older than the winter itself. Her fingers were blue. Her lips had cracked. The last bowl of coarse grain in the kitchen had been gone for 3 days, and the man she had spent half her life protecting was nowhere to be found. He had left with another woman. Not yesterday, not last week, 27 years ago. Yet even after all those years, she had continued paying for the ruin he left behind. Her husband, Zhao Guochang, had abandoned her during the hardest winter their village had ever seen. He took the household savings, the best clothes, the grain coupons, and even the silver bracelet her mother had left behind. Then he disappeared to the county town with Chen Lihua, the widow everyone once called pitiful. At the time, Meiyun had been pregnant. She had begged him not to go. He had looked at her swollen belly, then at the near-empty grain jar and said only one sentence. A useless woman cannot even feed herself. Then he walked away. Meiyun never forgot the sound of his shoes crushing frost beneath them. She never forgot the way Chen Lihua glanced back with a smile. Years later, Zhao Guochang became a wealthy businessman during the wave of economic reforms. Chen Lihua became his lawful wife in everything but the memories of the woman he abandoned. Meiyun, meanwhile, lost her unborn child during that brutal winter. Then she lost her health, then her family land, then nearly everything else. She survived by working in fields that did not belong to her, carrying fertilizer until her shoulders bled, cutting wheat beneath summers so hot the earth cracked underfoot. She watched people who once mocked her become shop owners, contractors, traders, landlords. She watched history change, but she never caught up. And now, on the final night of her miserable life, a radio in the neighboring house announced that Zhao Guochang had donated millions to build a new hospital. Millions. The same man who once stole 12 yuan from his pregnant wife. Meiyun stared at the snow slipping through the roof. Something hot burned behind her eyes, but she had no tears left. If there is another life, she thought, I will never beg anyone again. I will never hand my fate to a man. I will never starve. Her breathing stopped before dawn. Then a rooster crowed. Meiyun opened her eyes. The first thing she felt was heat. Not the numb cold of death, not the ache of old bones, heat. A rough cotton quilt pressed against her body. Sunlight entered through a paper-covered wooden window. Somewhere outside, someone was chopping firewood. She sat upright so violently that the wooden bed creaked. Her hands flew to her face, smooth skin, firm cheeks, no wrinkles. Her heart began pounding. She looked around mud brick walls, a faded enamel basin, a wooden cabinet with one broken hinge, a calendar hanging crooked beside the door. Meiyun stumbled from the bed and nearly fell as she reached it. Her breath disappeared. She knew this room. She knew that cabinet. She knew the faded red flower painted on the basin. This was Zhao Guochang's family house. This was the year everything began. She was 22 years old again. And if memory served correctly, Zhao Guochang would abandon her in exactly 3 months. Meiyun stared at the date until her vision blurred. Then she laughed. At first it was only a whisper. Then the laughter grew. It was not joyful. It was sharp, broken, almost frightening. Heaven had sent her back. Not to save her marriage, not to forgive anyone, but to collect every debt. A sudden warmth spread across her palm. Meiyun froze. A dark green mark shaped like a tiny leaf appeared near her wrist. Before she could touch it, the room vanished. She found herself standing beneath a sky brighter than anything she had ever seen. In front of her stretched endless black farmland. Not dozens of moo, endless. Neat fields disappeared beyond the horizon. A clear spring flowed beside a wooden farmhouse. Fruit trees stood heavy with peaches, pears, oranges, and apples, even though those fruits should never have ripened in the same season. Beyond them grew rice, wheat, corn, soybeans, peanuts, vegetables of every kind. Meiyun's knees weakened. She walked toward the nearest wheat field. The golden stalks were thick and heavy, each one nearly bursting with grain. She touched them, real. She pulled one head of wheat free, rubbed it between her palms, blew away the husk, and placed a kernel in her mouth. Sweet, full, fresh. Tears finally poured from her eyes. In her first life, she had starved beside an empty grain jar. Now heaven had given her enough food to feed 10 villages. A calm understanding appeared in her mind, as if the space itself were teaching her. Crops planted here grew dozens of times faster than outside. The spring water strengthened the body. Food stored inside never spoiled. Animals could be raised here. Harvested land restored itself quickly, and most importantly, she could enter or leave with a thought. Meiyun walked into the farmhouse. Inside stood shelves filled with tools, hose axes, Baskets, storage jars, simple machinery she recognized from later decades. There were seeds too. Improved rice seed, high-yield wheat, to watermelon, cotton, medicinal herbs. She found a small kitchen and nearly stopped breathing again. There was salt, cooking oil, white flour. Rice polished so clean it looked like pearls. These things were not luxuries in the future. But in 1972, inside a poor rural household, they could change a person's fate. Meiyun dipped a wooden cup into the spring and drank. Cool water slid down her throat. A warmth spread through her stomach, then outward through every limb. The exhaustion she had carried since waking disappeared. Even the faint dizziness caused by months of poor food vanished. Her eyes sharpened. Her breathing deepened. Meiyun looked at the endless farmland once more. Then she smiled. Zhao Guoqiang thought she was useless because she could not feed herself. This time she would see who begged whom. She returned to the bedroom. Only seconds seemed to have passed. A voice immediately came from the courtyard. Meiyun, are you dead in there? Get up and cook. Her smile disappeared. Mother Zhao, Lu Shufen, her mother-in-law. In the previous life, this woman had treated Meiyun like unpaid livestock. The Zhao family had 3 sons, but Meiyun had been the only daughter-in-law forced to wake before sunrise, carry water, cook, wash clothes, feed pigs, work communal labor, and then return home to serve the entire household. If food was short, she ate last. If eggs were available, they belonged to the men. If there was meat during the new year, Meiyun received broth. And whenever she complained, Lu Shufen reminded her that a married woman belonged to her husband's family. In the previous life, Meiyun believed her. This time, she opened the door slowly. Lu Shufen stood in the courtyard with both hands on her hips. She was short, broad, and strong from years of farm work. "What are you staring at?" she snapped. "Your father-in-law wants breakfast. Guoqiang is hungry too. Hurry up and make corn porridge." Meiyun looked toward the eastern room. Zhao Qiang was inside. Her husband, the man whose betrayal had followed her through an entire lifetime. For one instant, old hatred flooded her chest so violently that her fingers trembled. She wanted to storm inside, wanted to slap him, wanted to tell everyone that within 3 months he would steal their money and run away with Chen Lihua. But anger without preparation was foolish. She had already learned that lesson once, so Meiyun lowered her gaze. "There is no cornmeal." Lu Shufen frowned. "What do you mean there is no cornmeal?" "Exactly what I said." The old woman's face darkened. "Then go borrow some from your mother's family." Meiyun almost laughed. There it was, the same command. In her previous life, she had returned to her parents repeatedly, begging for grain to feed the Zhao household. Her father secretly gave her sweet potatoes. Her mother gave her eggs saved for illness. Her younger brother even surrendered part of his work point ration. And how had the Zhao family repaid them? When Meiyun's father later broke his leg and needed help, Liu Shufen refused to lend even 2 yuan. Meiyun looked directly into her mother-in-law's eyes. The courtyard became silent. Liu Shufen blinked. "What did you say?" I said no. Meiyun's voice was calm. "If the Zhao family has no food, your sons can earn more work points. Why should my parents feed a household that doesn't carry their surname?" Liu Shufen's mouth fell open. She expected tears, excuses. "Fear not this, you ungrateful thing." She raised her hand. Meiyun caught her wrist. The movement was so fast that even Meiyun surprised herself. The spring water. It had already strengthened her. Lu Shufen struggled. "Let go." Meiyun tightened her grip slightly. Her mother-in-law's expression changed. Pain, shock, then fear. Meiyun leaned closer. "Don't hit me again." 4 simple words. But something in her eyes made Lu Shufen stop breathing for a moment. Meiyun released her. The old woman stumbled backward. At that exact moment, the eastern door opened. Zhao Guoqiang stepped outside. He was 25, tall, broad-shouldered, handsome enough that people in the village often praised Meiyun for marrying well. Looking at him now, Meiyun finally understood how completely youth could disguise ugliness. He frowned. "What's happening?" Lu Shufen immediately pointed at Meiyun. "Your wife has gone crazy. She refuses to cook and nearly broke my wrist." Guoqiang looked at Meiyun with annoyance. "Apologize to mother." In her previous life, those words would have frightened her. She would have lowered her head. She would have apologized, maybe even cried. Today, Meiyun simply looked at him. "Cook for yourself," Guoqiang stared. "What? You're hungry. You have 2 hands." His face hardened. "Lin Meiyun, have you forgotten who you married?" "No." Her smile was faint. "That's exactly what I finally remembered." Then she walked past him. Guoqiang grabbed her arm. "Where are you going?" Meiyun looked down at his hand. "Remove it." Maybe it was her tone. Maybe it was the strange coldness in her eyes. Guoqiang unconsciously loosened his fingers. I'm going to my parents' house, she said. Liu Shufen shouted from behind. Good, go beg them for grain. Meiyun did not turn around. She crossed the village road under the morning sun. Everything looked painfully familiar. Mud walls, straw roofs, barefoot children chasing chickens, women carrying baskets, men heading toward collective fields. In 1972, private business was nearly impossible in the countryside. Food distribution depended heavily on collective work points and ration systems. Every grain mattered. Every egg mattered. Every handful of flour could become leverage. Meiyun knew history. She knew which crops would become valuable. She knew when policies would loosen. She knew which county roads would later become commercial routes. She knew where a new railway connection would eventually bring opportunity. And now she had land that never exhausted, crops that grew at impossible speed, and storage that could preserve goods indefinitely. Becoming rich was no longer the question. The question was how rich she dared to become without attracting dangerous attention too early. When she reached the Lin family home, her mother was repairing an old jacket beside the doorway. Wang Shulin looked up and immediately stood. Meiyun? That single word nearly shattered her. Her mother had died 24 years before Meiyun's first death. In her previous life, Meiyun had been too poor to buy proper medicine. She had stood beside this woman as fever slowly took her away. Now Wang Shulin was alive, her hair still mostly black, her hands still strong. Meiyun rushed forward and hugged her. Mother. Shulin stiffened, then laughed nervously. What happened? Did that Zhao boy bully you? Meiyun buried her face against her shoulder. Not this time. Never again. Her father came from inside carrying a bamboo basket. Lin Dazong. Behind him appeared her younger brother Lin Zhenjun, only 17 and thin as a reed. All alive, all here. Meiyun looked at them and made a silent promise. This life would be different. Her family would eat well. Her father would never ruin his leg because she could not afford treatment. Her mother would never die because medicine cost too much. Her brother would never sacrifice his future to support her. She would change everything. Jolin touched her forehead. Are you sick? Meiyun shook her head. I'm hungry. Her mother's face immediately tightened with concern. Didn't the Zhao family feed you? Before Meiyun could answer, Xiulan hurried inside. A few minutes later, she returned with half a sweet potato. Only half. She had clearly saved the other half for someone else. Eat. Meiyun looked at it. In her space were mountains of food. But this half-sweet potato carried more weight than all of them. She broke it into 4 pieces, one for her mother, one for her father, one for her brother, one for herself, Xiaolan protested. Meiyun smiled. Today we share. Tomorrow I'll bring food. Her father frowned. From where? Meiyun looked toward the distant mountains. She already had an answer prepared. The mountain. Wild food existed there, mushrooms, herbs, rabbits, occasionally pheasants. If she brought small amounts from her space and claimed she found them in the forest, no one would question much. Not at first. That afternoon, Meiyun entered the hills alone. Once hidden behind thick trees, she disappeared into the farming space. She harvested vegetables, dug sweet potatoes, collected 20 eggs. Then she stopped. She needed patience. She selected only 6 sweet potatoes, a small bundle of wild-looking greens, 3 eggs, and a rabbit she had found wandering near the edge of the space after entering. When she returned to the Lin house at dusk, Xiaolin nearly dropped the water bucket. Where did you get all this? Found of it? Meiyun smiled. I was lucky. Her father inspected the rabbit. This isn't luck. This thing is fat enough for New Year. Meiyun crouched beside the kitchen fire. Then let's eat it. Everyone froze. Xiaolin whispered, eat it? A rabbit like this could be exchanged, for grain, for cloth, maybe even for money. Meiyun knew, but she also knew what hunger had stolen from this family. Tonight she wanted them full. Cook it. Her mother hesitated. Meiyun cracked 1 egg into a bowl, then another. Xiaolin almost screamed. What are you doing making dinner? 3 eggs. Yes, 3. Her father stared at her as if she had become a stranger. Meiyun only smiled, because this was nothing. This was the smallest taste of what she intended to give them. Within an hour, the smell of rabbit stew filled the tiny house. Zhenjun sat beside the table swallowing repeatedly. When they finally ate, no one spoke for several minutes. They were too busy chewing. Meiyun watched her family and felt something inside her finally begin to heal. Then someone hammered on the courtyard gate. Bang! Bang! Lu Shufen's voice exploded outside. Lin Meiyun, come out! Everyone stopped eating. Meiyun's eyes narrowed. She knew this moment. In her previous life, it happened 2 weeks later. But because she had resisted this morning, events were moving faster. She walked outside. Liu Shufen stood at the gate. Zhao Guoqiang was beside her, and next to him stood Chen Lihua, young, wearing a pale blue jacket. The woman who would steal her husband. The woman who would later smile while Meiyun lost everything. Chen Lihua lowered her eyes innocently. Sister Meiyun, don't misunderstand. Brother Guoqiang only came to help me carry some firewood. Meiyun looked at Zhao Guoqiang, then at their hands. His fingers were still wrapped around Chen Lihua's basket, exactly like before. Only this time, Meiyun did not feel heartbreak. She felt opportunity. Because in her first life, she had fought desperately to keep Zhao Guoqiang. In this life, she intended to make him regret leaving. But first, she would make sure he left with absolutely nothing. Meiyun's gaze rested on Chen Lihua for only a moment before sliding toward Zhao Guoqiang. In her previous life, this was the beginning of the humiliation. Back then, she had seen them standing together and immediately lost control. She had cried, shouted, accused Lihua of seducing a married man, and grabbed Guoqiang's sleeve like a drowning woman clutching driftwood. The result had been disastrous, Lihua cried. Guoqiang became furious. The neighbors gathered, and by the end of the argument, somehow Meiyun became the unreasonable wife, while Chen Lihua became the poor widow. Everyone pitied. This time, Meiyun understood something she had learned far too late. Sometimes the best way to defeat shameless people was not to expose them. It was to let them expose themselves. She stepped aside and opened the gate wider. Come in, Chen Lihua blinked. Guoqiang frowned. Even Liu Shufen seemed confused. Meiyun turned and walked back toward the table. The smell of rabbit stew drifted through the doorway. Liu Shufen's expression changed instantly. Meat? She pushed past everyone and entered the house. Her eyes locked onto the bowl in the center of the table. Rabbit meat, eggs, sweet potatoes, greens. For a poor rural family in 1972, the meal looked almost extravagant. Liu Shufen's face twisted. So this is where you've been hiding food? Shulan immediately stood. What nonsense are you talking about? Your daughter is married into the Zhao family. Anything she finds belongs to the Zhao family. Meiyun almost admired the woman's shamelessness. Almost she calmly sat down. The food came from the mountain while I was visiting my parents. Exactly, Liu Shufen shouted. And you brought it here instead of home. Meiyun picked up a piece of sweet potato. Home? She chewed slowly. Then she looked toward Guoqiang. I thought your son told everyone this morning that a wife should know her place. Guoqiang's jaw tightened. What does that have to do with this? Quite a lot. Meiyun set down her chopsticks. If I'm expected to serve the Zhao family because I married into it, then the Zhao family should feed me. But your grain jar is empty. Your mother wants me to borrow from my parents. Your family contributes nothing, yet everything I find should belong to you. She smiled. That's a remarkable arrangement. Lin Dezong coughed into his fist to hide a laugh. Liu Shufen turned red. You wicked woman! She reached toward the bowl of rabbit stew. Meiyun moved faster. Her chopstick struck the back of Liu Shufen's hand. The sound was sharp. Liu Shufen yelped. Don't touch my parents' food. Her voice was quiet. That made it worse. Guoqiang stepped forward. You've gone too far, have I? Meiyun looked at Chen Lihua. Then why don't you ask your friend to feed you? Everyone's attention shifted. Chen Lihua immediately looked uncomfortable. Sister Meiyun, I already explained. Brother Guoqiang was only helping me carry firewood. I know, Meiyun smiled kindly. You should ask him to help with breakfast too. Chen Lihua's expression froze. Guoqiang stared at Meiyun. You don't care? That question amused her more than anything else had today. In her first life, she had cared so much that it destroyed her. Now she looked at the man she once loved and felt as though she were staring at a bad investment she had finally escaped. Should I? His face darkened. Meiyun continued eating. The silence became awkward. Chen Lihua was the first to break it. Aunt Zhao, Brother Guoqiang, maybe we should leave. Liu Shufen glared at the table. Not before she comes home. I'm staying here tonight, Meiyun said. No, then drag me. Liu Shufen stared at her. Meiyun stared back. For several seconds, nobody moved. Finally, Guoqiang spoke. Enough. His voice carried the authority he liked to use whenever he wanted everyone to obey. Meiyun, come home. No, one word, again. His eyes sharpened. Don't force me to make a scene. Meiyun slowly stood. Make one. The challenge hung in the room. Guoqiang seemed genuinely stunned. This was not the woman he knew. The old Meiyun would lower her voice whenever he became angry. She would follow him home. She would apologize even when she had done nothing wrong. But the woman standing before him had already died once. There was nothing he could threaten her with anymore. Guoqiang finally turned toward the door. Fine, his voice became cold. Stay here, don't come crawling back tomorrow. Meiyun almost smiled. good he left. Lu Shufan followed after throwing one last furious look over her shoulder. Chen Lihua remained for half a second longer. Her eyes met Meiyun's. Something flickered inside them. Not innocence, calculation. Then she lowered her head and followed Guoqiang into the darkness. Meiyun watched them disappear. Xiulin hurried beside her. What happened between you two? Meiyun closed the gate. Yet. Her mother looked alarmed. Meiyun didn't explain. She could not tell them she had returned from decades in the future. She could not tell them that Zhao Guoqiang would soon abandon her. And she certainly could not reveal the farming space. Not yet. Instead, she returned to the table. Father, Mother, Jianjun, all three looked at her. From today onward, stop giving me grain. Julin frowned. But if the Zhao family doesn't feed you, I can feed myself. Her father studied her. How the mountain? Da Zhang's eyes narrowed. Meiyun knew he was not convinced, so she added another layer. I found a place deep in the hills where there are more wild vegetables and animals. I can gather things there. Her brother leaned forward. Really? Yes. Can I go with you tomorrow? No, her answer was immediate, too dangerous. Jianjun looked disappointed. Min reached over and pushed another piece of rabbit meat into his bowl. Study instead. He laughed. Study what? I spend half my time in the fields. That sentence reminded Meiyun of another regret. Jianjun had been clever, very clever. But poverty had forced him to abandon education. Later, when opportunities arrived, he lacked the qualifications to seize them. In this life, she would change that too. One step at a time. That night, Meiyun slept in her childhood room. After everyone went quiet, she entered the farming space again. The crops she had seen earlier had somehow already changed. The wheat field she had partially harvested was golden again. The vegetable beds were full. Chickens wandered near the farmhouse. 2 rabbits had multiplied into several. Meiyun stood motionless. So fast she tested something. She planted a handful of sweet potato cuttings. Then she walked toward the spring, drank some water, and returned. Fresh vines had already begun spreading through the soil. Her heart raced. This was more powerful than she imagined. Food shortages were one of the greatest constraints of this era. Yet she possessed a private world where food could multiply at absurd speed. If she were careless, this treasure could get her killed. If she were patient, it could build an empire. She entered the storage building. Rows of empty shelves stretched into darkness. Meiyun placed one freshly harvested apple on a shelf. Then she left the space. She returned several hours later. The apple looked as fresh as before. Perfect. No decay, no moisture loss. She understood the value immediately. Today, food. Tomorrow, medicinal herbs. Later, rare seeds. After economic reforms, meat, fruit, grain, specialty crops. When transportation networks improved, she could supply markets. When private trade expanded, she could open stores. When land development accelerated, she could invest. She had lived through the future once. She knew where the waves would rise. All she needed was enough capital to stand on them. And capital could begin with something as simple as an egg. The next morning, Meiyun woke before sunrise. She entered the space, collected 10 eggs, several bundles of greens, and 2 rabbits. Then she hid most of them in a basket beneath dry leaves. She carried only 1 rabbit and 4 eggs back to the Lin family kitchen. Again, Meiyun nodded. Her mother lowered her voice. We can't eat like this every day. Why not? Because people will notice, Meiyun smiled. Exactly. Her mother blinked. Today we're not eating the rabbit. Then what are you doing with it? For what? Meiyun already had someone in mind. Old Dr. He. He lived at the edge of the neighboring production brigade. Officially, he treated minor injuries and illnesses with herbal remedies. Unofficially, people knew he could obtain things others could not. Medicine. Needles. Occasionally cloth, sometimes even grain. More importantly, old Dr. He understood discretion. In Meiyun's previous life, he had once treated her mother without payment. She had never forgotten. By mid-morning, Meiyun reached his small courtyard. The old man was sorting dried herbs. He, Lin girl? You remember me? You brought your mother here once when she had a cough. Meiyun nodded. I have something to exchange. His eyes moved to the covered basket. What? She uncovered the rabbit. Dr. He's brows rose fat. Very. Where did you get it, Mountain? He looked at her. She looked back. Neither spoke for several seconds. Then he smiled. What do you want? Medicine. For who? No one yet. His expression became curious. Meiyun continued. Fever medicine, pain medicine. Something for wounds, anything useful that keeps well. He leaned back. That's a strange request. I like being prepared. He examined the rabbit again. Then he went inside. When he returned, he carried a small paper bundle and 2 tiny bottles. Not much. But enough, Meiyun accepted them carefully. Then she placed 2 eggs beside the rabbit. Dr. He frowned. That's extra. Keep it. Why? Because one day I may need your help again. The old man looked at her differently. You plan far ahead for someone your age. Meiyun smiled. Hunger teaches people to plan. She left, but she did not go home. Instead, she continued toward the county town. The road was long. Her shoes were worn thin. But the spring water had strengthened her enough that the distance barely tired her. The county town was small compared with what it would become decades later. Bicycles passed occasionally. Workers in blue and gray clothing moved between low buildings. Supply stores required coupons for many goods. Private selling was dangerous, but informal exchange existed. It always had. Meiyun walked toward an alley behind the state-run market. In her previous life, she had learned that people quietly traded goods there when official channels could not meet demand. She stopped near a woman carrying a cloth bag. The woman looked around nervously. Meiyun noticed what she was holding. Eggs, the woman whispered. Do you have any? Meiyun nodded. How many? 6. The woman's eyes brightened. Price? Meiyun had no intention of becoming greedy too early. She named a reasonable amount. The woman immediately agreed. Money changed hands beneath the cloth bag. Meiyun's first private sale was complete in less than a minute. The amount was tiny. But when she closed her fingers around those first few notes, emotion surged through her. In her previous life, she had once walked 7 kilometers to borrow 50 cents. Now she had created money from a space where eggs multiplied almost endlessly. This was only the beginning. She made 2 more small exchanges, greens, nothing large enough to attract attention. Then she returned home before evening. For the first time since waking in 1972, she possessed money that belonged entirely to her. She hid most of it inside the farming space. Only a tiny amount remained in her pocket. When she arrived at the Lin house, Jianjun came running. What? Someone from the Zhao family came. Meiyun stopped. Who? Your husband. Her eyes narrowed. Where is he? Inside. She entered the house. Zhao Guoqiang sat beside the table. His expression was colder than usual. Zulin stood near the stove, obviously uncomfortable. Meiyun placed her basket down. Why are you here? Guoqiang looked at her. Come outside, say it here. His jaw tightened. This concerns our marriage. Then my parents should hear it. For several seconds, he said nothing. Finally, he reached into his jacket. Meiyun watched his hand. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. Something inside her became very still. She remembered that paper. Not the exact words, but the moment. In her previous life, it came months later. After Chen Lihua had already convinced him that Meiyun was a burden. After he had secretly taken money. After he had decided to leave. But this time, because Meiyun had stopped begging, stopped serving, stopped feeding his ego, the timeline had accelerated. Guoqiang placed the paper on the table. If you refuse to behave like a proper wife, then maybe we should separate. Shilin gasped. Jinjin's face changed. Dezong stood abruptly. But Meiyun remained still. Guoqiang clearly expected fear. He expected tears. He expected her to grab his arm. Instead, she looked at the paper, then at him. And good. His expression froze. Meiyun pulled out the chair and sat down. Let's discuss what you owe me before we separate. For the first time, Zhao Guoqiang looked uncertain, and Meiyun knew the real revenge had finally begun. Zhao Guoqiang stared at Meiyun as though she had suddenly begun speaking a language he did not understand. What I owe you. His tone carried disbelief. Meiyun leaned back in the wooden chair. Yes. He gave a short, contemptuous laugh. Lin Meiyun, you've lived in my family's house since we married. You've eaten our grain, used our firewood, slept under our roof, and now you want to calculate debts with me? Meiyun's expression did not change. Excellent. Let's calculate everything. The room fell quiet. Her father slowly sat down again. Her mother looked worried, but Meiyun could see something else in her eyes too. Curiosity. Because this was not the daughter they remembered. This daughter was calm, dangerously calm. Yun began with the first year of marriage. When I married into the Zhao family, my parents gave me a quilt, 2 sets of clothes, a wooden chest, a pair of shoes, and 8 yuan. Guoqiang shifted. Meiyun continued. Your mother took the 8 yuan and said she would keep it safe. She looked at him. Where is it? He frowned. That was years ago. Exactly. So either return it or admit the Zhao family spent my dowry. His face hardened. Don't be ridiculous. Meiyun ignored him. During the first spring, my parents gave us 30 jin of sweet potatoes because your family ran short of food. That summer, my father gave you a sickle because yours broke. During winter, my mother brought us 6 eggs and 2 jin of flour. The following year, my brother worked 3 extra days for your family. When Guoqiang had a fever. She paused. Should I continue? Guoqiang's expression had begun to change. Not because he felt guilty, because he understood what she was doing. She was stripping away the story his family had repeated for years, the story that the Zhao family had supported her. The truth was almost the opposite. Meiyun's parents had quietly supplemented their household over and over again. De Zhang folded his arms. She's right. Shilin nodded reluctantly. I didn't keep exact records, but we gave more than that. Guoqiang looked toward them. This is between husband and wife. No, Meiyun said. You brought separation papers into my parents' home. Now it's a family matter. He slapped his palm on the table. Enough! Jianjun flinched. Meiyun did not. She looked at his hand, then back at his face. Finished? His breathing became heavier. Meiyun reached toward the folded paper. He immediately grabbed it first. What are you doing? Reading. There's nothing to read. Then why bring it? His silence was answer enough. It had never been intended as a real separation agreement. It was a threat, a weapon. He expected her to panic and return home obediently. Meiyun understood him better than he understood himself. So she smiled. You don't actually want to separate. His face tightened. Don't flatter yourself. Then leave the paper. He didn't move. Meiyun stood. I'll make it easier. She walked to the cabinet, took out an old notebook, and placed it on the table. If you want to separate, we divide everything clearly. What everything? She looked directly at him. The grain currently in your house. The work point allocations earned during our marriage. The chickens I raised. The bedding my family provided. The money your mother took from my dowry. Anything I personally contributed. Guoqiang's expression grew ugly. You think you can take property from the Zhao family? Property? Meiyun laughed softly. The Zhao family has almost nothing. That's why your mother keeps sending me to my parents for food. De Zhang turned his head away, clearly trying not to laugh. Guoqiang stood. You're becoming unreasonable. No, I'm finally becoming precise. He glared at her. Meiyun held his gaze. Then she delivered the sentence she had wanted to say for 27 years. If you want another woman, take her. But don't expect me to fund your departure. The room seemed to lose its air. Guoqiang's eyes flickered. Shulin stared at him. De Zhang's face darkened. Jianjun looked confused. What other woman? Guoqiang immediately raised his voice. What are you talking about? Meiyun tilted her head. Nothing. Yet his face changed again. That one word unsettled him. Because guilty people feared unfinished accusations more than direct ones. Meiyun knew exactly what was happening between him and Chen Lihua. Perhaps they had not crossed every boundary yet, but the emotional betrayal had already begun. They sought each other out, shared complaints, created excuses to meet, and Lihua had already learned how to make Guoqiang feel admired. In the previous life, Meiyun had fought Lihua. This time she would do something far more effective. She would give Guoqiang space to ruin himself. He snatched the paper from the table. Fine, stay here. He turned toward the door. Meiyun stopped him. Guoqiang. He looked back. The next time you bring separation papers, make sure you actually mean it. Her smile was almost pleasant. Because I will sign. He left without answering. The courtyard gate slammed behind him. Shulin immediately rushed toward Meiyun. Are you serious? Yes, her mother stared. You would separate? Yes. But women who separate, I know. Meiyun's voice remained calm. She knew better than anyone. In this era, a woman whose marriage failed could be blamed regardless of the reason. Neighbors whispered. Relatives judged, opportunities narrowed. But none of that frightened her. She had already lived a life where fear of gossip trapped her inside misery. She would not repeat it. Dazhang spoke slowly. If you're certain he has someone else, you should collect proof. Meiyun looked at her father. He had always been quieter than her mother, but he was practical. She nodded. I will. Jianjun suddenly clenched his fists. If he hurts you, I'll beat him. Meiyun laughed. Why not? Because I need you healthy. She tapped his forehead. Your job is to become useful enough that one day people like him won't even deserve your attention. He looked offended. I'm already useful, then study. He groaned. That night, Meiyun entered the farming space again. The moment she arrived, she checked the crop fields. Everything had replenished. The speed was almost absurd. She harvested a section of rice, then wheat, then vegetables. By the time she finished, dozens of baskets sat inside the storage building. She realized something important. The space did not merely solve hunger, it solved scarcity. And scarcity was the foundation of value. Outside, people spent hours earning enough work points for a small grain allocation. Inside, Meiyun could produce more food than a household could consume in years. But that power created a problem. She could not sell too much, not now. Sudden abundance would attract questions. Where did the grain come from? Where did the meat come from? Why did one poor village woman always possess rare goods? Even if nobody discovered the space, suspicion alone could destroy her. She needed camouflage. Legitimate explanations, networks, people who could absorb goods quietly. The county market was only the beginning. She needed different channels, Dr. He, factory workers, staff, transport workers, maybe cooks, people with access to customers who needed food and cared more about supply than questions. Meiyun smiled. In the future, people would call it distribution. In 1972, it was simply knowing who needed what. The following morning, she took another trip toward the county. This time, she carried fewer visible goods, only 8 eggs, a small bag of peanuts, a bundle of greens. But hidden inside the space were much larger reserves. She returned to the alley behind the market. The woman from yesterday appeared again. You came back, Meiyun nodded. The woman looked into her basket. Only these for now. The woman picked up an egg, fresh, very. Do you have more? How many do you want? The woman hesitated. 20. Meiyun deliberately shook her head. Too many. 10, maybe tomorrow. The woman lowered her voice. My sister works at a textile factory canteen. They always need food. Meiyun's heart moved. A channel. But her expression remained neutral. What kind? Vegetables. Sometimes meat. The woman studied Meiyun. If you can supply consistently, I can introduce you. Meiyun pretended to consider it. How much? The woman named a price slightly below the informal retail rate. Reasonable. That was expected. A middlewoman needed profit. Meiyun nodded. The woman smiled. My name is Sun Yulan Lin Meiyun. They separated quickly. On the walk home, Meiyun almost laughed. Yesterday, she had sold a handful of eggs. Today, she had found potential access to a factory canteen. Small but important. A stable buyer was worth far more than random customers. When she returned to the village, however, she immediately sensed something wrong. 3 women standing near the communal well stopped talking when they saw her. One whispered. Another looked away. Meiyun knew that behavior, rumors. She continued walking. Near her parents' house, Auntie Gao from next door hurried over. Meiyun. What happened? The older woman lowered her voice. People are saying you abandoned your husband and refused to return home. Meiyun nearly smiled. Already? Auntie Gao continued. They say you insulted your mother-in-law, stole food from the Zhao family, and now you're staying with your parents because you're too lazy to work. Of course, Lu Shufan had begun her attack. In the first life, Meiyun feared gossip so much that she constantly tried to defend herself. This time, she understood that rumors were tools, and tools could be turned around. Who said I stole food? Auntie Gao looked uncomfortable. Shufan. Good. Meiyun handed her 2 greens. Auntie Gao immediately tried to refuse. No, no, Meiyun smiled. And if anyone asks, tell them you saw me come down from the mountain with my own basket. The woman's eyes brightened. I did see you yesterday. Exactly, Meiyun walked inside. She did not rush to confront Lu Shufan. Instead, she waited. By afternoon, another neighbor appeared, then another. The rumor had spread. Meiyun gave each person the same calm answer. The Zhao family grain jar was empty. Her mother-in-law told her to borrow from her parents. She went home because she refused. The rabbit and eggs came from the mountain. She had witnesses who saw her carrying the basket. She never insulted anyone. She simply refused to keep feeding an able-bodied household from her parents' supplies. The story spread again, but now it had 2 versions, and Meiyun knew which version sounded more believable. By evening, people were no longer whispering only about her. They were whispering about Lu Shufan. She expects the Lin family to feed her sons? Didn't Meiyun's parents already help them before? If their grain is gone this early, maybe their household planning is terrible. I heard Guoqiang was walking with Widow Chen again. That last rumor interested Meiyun most. She had not started it, which meant others had noticed. Perfect. The next morning, Meiyun returned to the county with 10 eggs. Sun Yulan was waiting. You came, I said I would. Yulan inspected the eggs. Good. Come with me. They walked several streets toward the textile factory. The factory itself was surrounded by walls. Workers entered through a guarded gate. Yulan did not take Meiyun inside. Instead, she brought her to a back lane where a woman in her 30s was waiting. This is Sister Zhou, Zhou Fen, factory canteen assistant. Zhou looked Meiyun over. Yulan says you can get food. Some. How much? Meiyun answered carefully. Depends what you need. Eggs, 10 or 20 at a time. Vegetables, a few baskets. Meat? Occasionally, Zhou narrowed her eyes. Where from? Family relatives in the countryside. Not exactly a lie, just incomplete. Zhou continued. Can you supply 30 eggs by the end of the week? Meiyun pretended to hesitate. 30 was nothing. Her space could produce hundreds, but she could not appear too capable. Maybe 25 for certain, 30 if I'm lucky. Price? They negotiated quietly. The final amount was better than Meiyun expected. Not enough to become wealthy, but enough to begin accumulating cash. Then Joe added something unexpected. If the quality stays good, I know people at 2 other canteens. Meiyun kept her expression calm. Inside, her plans expanded instantly. 3 canteens, stable demand. Recurring buyers. This was how foundations were built. Not through one dramatic fortune. Through repeatable transactions. Before leaving, Joe whispered, "Can you get white flour?" Meiyun's heart skipped. She had mountains of it. But white flour was much more sensitive. Harder to explain. Not now. Joe looked disappointed. Later, perhaps. Meiyun nodded. Later, that word mattered. She needed buyers to understand that supply would expand slowly. That way, when her volume increased, it would appear natural. Over the next 10 days, Meiyun created a routine. Morning work around the Lin household. Short trips into the hills as cover. Harvesting inside the farming space. Small deliveries to Yulan and Joe. Occasional exchanges through Dr. He. She earned more money in 10 days than she had once controlled in many months, still modest. Still hidden but hers. She stored nearly all of it inside the farmhouse in her space. Then she began buying things for her family. Not luxury. That would attract attention. Necessities, needles, thread. Soap, a better notebook for Jianjun, medicine. A small amount of fabric. Seulin touched the fabric repeatedly. "You shouldn't spend money on this." Meiyun smiled. "You need a new jacket before winter," her mother frowned. "Where are you getting this money? From what I sell?" Xiaolin looked alarmed. "Be careful," and she was. Far more careful than anyone knew. Then, on the 12th day, Zhao Chang returned. This time he came alone. Meiyun was splitting kindling in the courtyard. He stopped near the gate. "You look different." She continued working. "What do you want?" He frowned. "Can't I visit my wife?" Sounded strange now. Meiyun placed the axe down. "You didn't seem interested 12 days ago." His expression softened deliberately. Mother was angry. I was angry. We all said things. Meiyun nearly laughed. So this was the next stage. He expected her resistance to fade. He expected loneliness, fear, social pressure. Instead, she looked healthier than before. The spring water had transformed her subtly. Her skin was clearer, her eyes brighter, her posture straighter. And because she was finally eating properly, the thinness caused by constant hunger had begun disappearing. Guoqiang noticed. That irritated Meiyun more than his words. He only valued what seemed improved once it was slipping away. "Come home," he said. "No." His jaw tightened. Meiyun. "No. People are talking. Let them." "You're embarrassing me." She almost smiled. There it was. Not concern, not affection, his reputation. Meiyun crossed her arms. "Then perhaps stop walking around the village carrying Chen Lihua's baskets." His eyes sharpened. "Again with this nonsense. I didn't accuse you. You keep implying." "Then why are you nervous?" He stopped. Meiyun stepped closer. "Guoqiang, listen carefully. If you want Lihua, choose her. If you want me, then behave like a husband. But you do not get both." His face became cold. "You're jealous, no?" That answer clearly irritated him more than jealousy would have. Meiyun smiled. "I'm giving you freedom." He stared at her. Then he suddenly said, "Lihua understands me." Meiyun almost wanted to applaud. There it was, the beginning of confession. He continued. "She doesn't argue over every small thing. She respects people." Meiyun nodded. "Then marry her." His eyes widened. "You think I won't? I hope you do." He looked genuinely angry now. Meiyun leaned closer. "But first, separate from me properly. Return my dowry, divide what belongs to me, and don't touch my family's grain. Then you can spend every remaining day carrying Chen Lihua's baskets if that makes you happy." Guoqiang's face darkened. "You'll regret this." Meiyun smiled. "No, I already regretted you once." The words slipped out. His brows knitted. "What does that mean?" "Nothing." She picked up the axe again. "Go home." He stood there a few seconds longer, then turned sharply and left. But before he reached the road, a familiar female voice called out, "Brother Guoqiang." Meiyun looked up. Chen Lihua was approaching, carrying a cloth bundle. She slowed when she noticed Meiyun, then smiled. "Sister Meiyun." Meiyun rested one hand on the axe handle. Lihua approached Guoqiang. "I made some corn cakes. Aunt Zhao said you hadn't eaten properly." Guoqiang's expression softened. "You didn't have to. It's nothing." Meiyun watched them. Perfect. 2 neighbors were standing near the well. Another woman was walking past with a basket. Everyone could see. Lihua handing food to another woman's husband. Guoqiang accepting it. No shouting, no accusation, no scene required. Meiyun simply smiled. Then she returned to chopping wood. The axe came down. Crack, the log split perfectly. The sound echoed through the courtyard. Li Hua flinched. That night, the village rumor changed again. This time, nobody said Meiyun was jealous. They said Chen Li Hua was becoming too close to a married man. They said Guoqiang spent more time around the widow than his own wife, and they said perhaps Meiyun had good reason to remain with her parents. By the next morning, Lu Shufan arrived furious. She stormed into the Lin courtyard. "You did this!" Meiyun looked up from washing vegetables. "Did what? Spread filthy rumors about my son?" Meiyun laughed. "I haven't spread anything, liar." "Then ask the people who saw them." Lu Shufan froze. Meiyun dried her hands. "Your son accepted food from another woman in front of half the road. What exactly did you expect people to say?" Lu Shufan's face turned red. "Li Hua is a good woman. Then let Guoqiang marry her." Again, that sentence always destroyed their attack because it removed the weapon they expected to use, jealousy. Fear, desperation, Meiyun had none. Lu Shufan pointed at her. "Don't think anyone will want you if Guoqiang leaves." Meiyun looked at the woman's finger, then at her face. "I don't need anyone to want me," she smiled. "I need money." Lu Shufan stared. Meiyun almost laughed at the shock. To a woman like Lu Shufan, the idea was absurd. A rural wife thinking about money rather than a husband. But Meiyun had lived long enough to understand something brutally simple. When she starved, love did not fill the bowl. When her mother needed medicine, loyalty did not pay the doctor. When winter came through a broken roof, reputation did not repair it. Money could not solve everything. But poverty made nearly everything worse. In this life, she intended to be poor only in memory. After Lu Shufan left, Meiyun entered the farming space. She walked past the rice fields, past the wheat, past the fruit trees, then stopped near an empty section of black soil. An idea had been growing in her mind. Food was profitable, but medicinal plants could be worth far more, especially rare ones. She took out several seeds and roots she had quietly obtained from Dr. He ginseng, astragalus, angelica, a few other herbs. She planted them, then poured spring water over the soil. When she returned later, green shoots had already emerged. Her heart began pounding. If the space accelerated growth without destroying medicinal potency, she had found something far more valuable than eggs. She waited, watched, tested. Days inside the farming space seemed to condense into astonishing growth. The ginseng roots thickened. Years of natural development appeared to pass in a fraction of the time. Meiyun stared at one root in disbelief. This was dangerous wealth. A fat chicken could attract curiosity. Old ginseng could attract powerful people. She immediately buried most of it again. Not yet, but she harvested one smaller root. The following morning, she brought it to Dr. He. The old man was drinking tea. Meiyun placed the wrapped root on his table. He opened the cloth. His hand froze. "Where did you get this mountain?" "Where? Deep." He lifted the root. His eyes became sharper. "This isn't ordinary, I know." "How old do you think it is?" He examined it carefully, then looked at her. "At least several decades." Meiyun's pulse quickened. "Good." The space preserved quality. Dr. He lowered his voice. "Do you have more?" "Maybe. Don't sell this casually." "Why?" "Because ordinary people can't afford it." He placed the root down carefully. "And people who can afford it may ask questions you don't want to answer." Meiyun smiled. That was exactly why she trusted him. "What would you do?" Dr. He thought for a long moment. "I know someone in the county." "Who?" "A retired physician. He sometimes helps families obtain rare medicine. He is discreet." Meiyun nodded. "Can he pay cash?" Dr. He stared at her. "You're becoming ambitious." "No." She wrapped the ginseng again. "I'm becoming prepared." He laughed. Then his expression turned serious. "Come back in 3 days." 3 days later, Dr. He introduced her to a man named Lu Wenhai, 63. Thin, quiet, formerly attached to a hospital in the provincial capital. Wenhai inspected the ginseng for nearly 20 minutes. "Where did you find it?" "Mountain." "Which mountain?" Meiyun smiled. "If I told everyone, there wouldn't be any left." He looked at her smart. He offered a price. Meiyun's fingers tightened beneath the table. It was more money than she had expected to earn in several months. She did not immediately agree. "Too low." Wenhai's eyebrows rose. Dr. He coughed. Meiyun continued. "A root of that quality is difficult to find." Wenhai studied her. "How would a village woman know that?" I asked Dr. He. "A partial truth." Wenhai raised the offer. Meiyun accepted. When she walked home afterward, the cash was safely hidden inside the farming space. Her entire financial situation had changed in one transaction. Not enough to display, but enough to prepare for larger moves. She bought nothing flashy. Instead, she invested in information, a county map, old newspapers, school books. She asked questions about transport routes. She memorized prices. She observed which factories were expanding, which neighborhoods had increasing worker populations, which products remained difficult to obtain. The future she remembered gave her direction. Current information gave her timing. Then came the day everything shifted. Meiyun was returning from the county when she noticed a crowd outside the Zhao house. Voices rose. Someone was crying. She stopped. A neighbor saw her. Meiyun, what happened? The woman hurried over. Your husband is leaving. Meiyun's heart became still. Leaving where? Count Li Hua. So soon? In her previous life, the betrayal had taken longer, but again, her changed behavior had accelerated events. She walked toward the crowd. Lu Shufan stood in the courtyard screaming. Guoqiang held a large cloth bag. Chen Lihua stood near the gate with another bundle. When Guoqiang saw Meiyun, his face changed. She looked at the luggage, then at him. Going somewhere? His jaw tightened. I found work in the county. With her, Lihua lowered her head. Guoqiang spoke sharply. She's going too. Meiyun nodded. Then she looked toward the inner room. Where's the household money? Silence. Lu Shufan suddenly stopped crying. Meiyun's eyes narrowed. She knew, again. History repeating. Guoqiang had taken money. Maybe not all of it this time, but enough. Meiyun stepped forward. How much did you take? None of your business. It becomes my business if any of it came from what my family contributed. Guoqiang grabbed his bag. Move. Meiyun did not. The entire courtyard watched. She spoke clearly. Before you leave with another woman, settle our marriage, Li Hua whispered. Sister Meiyun, don't make things ugly. Meiyun turned toward her. Ugly? She smiled. You're leaving the village with someone else's husband. I haven't done anything yet. Li Hua's face turned white. Whispers erupted. Guoqiang stepped between them. Enough. Meiyun looked at him. Choose. He frowned. What? Choose now. If you leave with her today, don't come back pretending nothing happened. Guoqiang stared at her. Then something arrogant appeared in his eyes. Perhaps he believed county work would change his fate. Perhaps Chen Lihua had convinced him that Meiyun would eventually beg. Perhaps he still thought she was the powerless woman he had married. He lifted his bag. I'm leaving. Meiyun nodded. Then tomorrow we separate. The crowd exploded into whispers. Lu Shufan screamed. No! Everyone turned. Her reaction was immediate and revealing. Meiyun understood why. A separated son was embarrassing. A son who quietly lived away from his wife could still preserve appearances. But Meiyun refused to become a discarded wife waiting at home. She looked directly at Guoqiang. Tomorrow morning, bring witnesses, bring the household accounts, bring my dowry money, and bring whatever grain allocation belongs to me. He laughed. You really think you can demand all that? Meiyun smiled. I think I can demand more. His expression changed. Because if you refuse, I'll tell the entire brigade exactly why you left. She looked toward Chen Lihua. Then she stepped aside. Go. Guoqiang stood frozen for a moment, then walked out. Chen Lihua followed. As they passed Meiyun, Lihua whispered, so quietly only she could hear, You'll regret letting him go. Meiyun turned her head. No, her smile was cold. You will regret taking him. Lihua's expression stiffened. Then she followed Guoqiang down the road. Meiyun watched them disappear into the distance. In her first life, this moment destroyed her. She had collapsed in the courtyard, begged, cried, chased him halfway down the road. Today, she felt something entirely different. Relief. Because Zhao Guoqiang had finally walked out of her future, and he had no idea that the woman he abandoned was already richer than his entire household. No idea that beneath her ordinary clothes lay access to endless farmland. No idea that her first real fortune had already been earned. No idea that while he chased a fragile dream in the county, she was preparing to build something far larger. Meiyun turned away from the road. Tomorrow she would take back her freedom. After that, she would take everything else life once denied her. The next morning, the Zhao courtyard was more crowded than during a festival. News traveled quickly in a village. News about grain moved faster. News about marriage moved fastest of all. By sunrise, nearly everyone had heard that Zhao Guoqiang had left for the county with Chen Lihua, and that Lin Meiyun intended to formally separate from him. Some came because they were curious. Some came because they wanted entertainment. Some came because they genuinely worried about her. And some came because suffering always attracted people who wished to compare it with their own. Meiyun arrived with her father and younger brother. She wore the same plain cotton jacket she had worn many times before. No jewelry. No new shoes. Nothing suggested that hidden beyond anyone's reach, inside the farming space, she possessed enough food and money to transform her life. That was intentional. For now, appearing poor was protection. Liu Shufan stood in the courtyard like a general preparing for war. Her husband Zhao Yongfu sat beside the doorway with a pipe clenched between his teeth. Two elderly relatives had been invited as witnesses. The production team leader, Uncle Qian, was also present. Guoqiang had not returned. Meiyun was not surprised. Cowards often preferred leaving women to fight their battles. Uncle Qian cleared his throat. Meiyun, are you certain you want to do this? Yes, think carefully. I have. A separation is not something to joke about. Neither is leaving your wife and traveling to the county with another woman. A murmur passed through the crowd. Liu Shufan exploded. Watch your mouth. Meiyun looked toward her. Was anything I said false? Liu Shufan pointed at her. My son went to work with Chen Lihua. They're only traveling together. Then why did he refuse to settle our marriage before leaving? Silence. Meiyun continued. And why did he take household money? Zhao Yongfu suddenly coughed. That small movement told her everything. There was money missing. Good, she had expected it. Liu Shufan shouted. The money belongs to our family, Meiyun nodded. Then let's determine exactly what belongs to your family. The older relatives shifted uneasily. Money disputes were ugly. But that was precisely what Meiyun wanted. Not ugliness, clarity. In her first life, she had walked away with nothing, because she was too ashamed to calculate what she contributed. This time, she intended to count every grain. Uncle Qian asked Zhao Yongfu to bring the household account notebook. The old man hesitated. Liu Shufan immediately interrupted. There is nothing to calculate. Meiyun smiled. Then why are you afraid of opening the notebook? A few people in the crowd laughed quietly. Liu Shufan's face reddened. Zhao Yongfu finally stood and went inside. He returned with a worn booklet. The pages were thin and stained. Work points, grain allocations, small household expenses. Nothing complicated. Meiyun looked through them slowly. Then she found what she expected. Her labor contributions were recorded. Her grain allocation, too. She tapped the page. This Uncle Qian leaned closer. He nodded. Meiyun earned those points. Then the grain portion tied to them belongs to me. Liu Shufan slapped her thigh. Nonsense, you ate in our house. Barely. The crowd laughed again. Meiyun continued before Liu Shufan could scream. I worked. My work points were recorded. The grain allocated from that labor cannot disappear simply because I married your son. Uncle Khan looked uncomfortable. Technically, she had a point. The elderly witness beside him nodded. If she leaves the household, some settlement should be made. Liu Shufan's face twisted. Settlement? With what grain? There it was. Meiyun had been waiting for that. What happened to it? No answer. She looked at Zhao Yongfu, then at the notebook, then at Liu Shufan. Your grain jar is nearly empty. You told me to borrow from my parents. And now you're saying there is nothing to return. Did Guoqiang take more than money? Zhao Yongfu's expression changed. Liu Shufan screamed. Don't accuse my son, Meiyun smiled. Then show everyone the storage room. Silence, no one moved. The crowd became interested. Uncle Qian finally said, It may be easier if we inspect it. Liu Shufan resisted. But too many people were watching. Too many witnesses. Finally, Zhao Yongfu opened the storage room. The grain jar was almost empty. A few sacks rested against the wall. One had been partially opened. Uncle Qian bent down. He frowned. This household should have more than this based on the last distribution. Exactly, Meiyun said. Liu Shufan shouted, We ate it. All of it? Winter had not even arrived. More murmurs. Zhao Yongfu lowered his head. Meiyun knew what had happened. Some grain had probably been exchanged. Some sold. Some used to finance Guoqiang's departure. In her first life, she never learned the exact details. This time, she did not need every answer. She only needed public recognition that the Zhao family was not the victim. The performance was already collapsing. Uncle Qian returned to the courtyard. The matter is simple. Meiyun should receive a reasonable portion based on her labor contribution and personal belongings. Liu Shufan nearly shrieked. Where are we supposed to get it? That's your problem, Meiyun said. Her tone was calm. That frightened Liu Shufan more than shouting would have. The older witness listed what should be returned. The quilt from Meiyun's parents, the wooden chest, her clothes. The remaining household goods clearly brought as dowry. Some grain, a small amount of money. Then Meiyun mentioned the 8 yuan. Liu Shufan immediately denied it. What 8 yuan? My dowry money. You never gave me money, Xiaolan stepped forward. I gave it to my daughter. Dezong nodded. I saw it. Liu Shufan looked around. Everyone was watching, she shouted. Even if she had it, maybe she spent it. Meiyun looked at her. You took it the week after I entered your household. That's a lie. Liu Shufan froze. Swear before everyone that you never touched it. Her mouth opened closed. opened again. The crowd became very quiet. In a rural village where reputation mattered, public oaths carried weight even when they had no legal force. Liu Shufan looked at the ground. That was enough. Meiyun smiled faintly. I thought so. The final settlement was not large. A few belongings. A modest grain portion. Part of the dowry money. Far less than what Meiyun had already earned secretly. But wealth was not the point. Principle was. She wanted the village to remember one thing. She had not been thrown away empty-handed. She had demanded what belonged to her. Then came the most important question. Uncle Qian looked at her. Do you still want to wait for Guoqiang to return before making this final? No. A murmur rose. Meiyun continued. He left with another woman after I told him clearly that leaving would end the marriage. He chose. The old men exchanged looks. Formal procedures in such matters were messy and depended on local arrangements, records, and family consent. Meiyun knew the process would not disappear in one morning. But socially, something more important happened that day. She left the Zhao household, publicly, completely, with witnesses, no tears. She carried her wooden chest out of the courtyard while Jianjun carried the quilt. Liu Shufan stood at the gate trembling with fury. You think you're powerful because people supported you today? Meiyun stopped. She turned. I think I'm free because I finally stopped supporting you. Then she walked away. That sentence became village gossip before lunchtime. By evening, even people in the neighboring brigade had heard some version of it. Meiyun did not care. She was busy. Freedom required construction, not celebration. The following week, she expanded her small trade. 25 eggs became 30, then 40. Vegetables became regular deliveries. Sun Yulan introduced her to another canteen worker, then another. Meiyun still refused large orders. She understood temptation. Rapid growth felt exciting, but rapid growth created visibility. So she rationed herself. Sometimes she claimed the mountain had been poor that week. Sometimes a relative could not supply. Sometimes she deliberately delivered less than requested. The buyers complained, then waited. Scarcity made them value her more. She also began using different baskets and travel routes. One day through the eastern path, another through the hill trail. Sometimes she visited Dr. He first, sometimes Yulan. Sometimes she did not sell at all. Patterns were dangerous. Inside the farming space, however, abundance grew unchecked. The storage buildings slowly filled rice, wheat, corn, beans, peanuts, sweet potatoes, dried vegetables, fresh vegetables, fruit, eggs, rabbit meat, chicken meat, medicinal herbs. Meiyun began experimenting with livestock. A pair of piglets entered the space. Within a surprisingly short time, they grew, then reproduced. She stared at the animals with disbelief. If she ever gained legitimate access to larger distribution networks, meat alone could make her wealthy. But not yet. She needed identity before scale. One evening, Dr. He called her into his courtyard. Someone wants to meet you. Who? Lu and Hai again? Why? Dr. He lowered his voice. The ginseng. Meiyun's expression remained neutral. What about it? He wants more. How much more? A better one. That was interesting. Meiyun sat. Doctor, he continued. Someone important in the provincial capital is ill. They need a strong medicinal root. Meiyun immediately became cautious. Important people brought important rewards and important danger. Who? He shook his head. I don't know the exact identity. Then no, Dr. He looked surprised. You don't want the money? I want to stay alive. He stared at her for several seconds, then laughed. Good answer. Meiyun leaned forward. Tell Wenhai I might find something smaller. Not exceptional, not rare enough to create questions. Dr. He nodded. You're learning fast. She smiled. I learned slowly. It just took me another lifetime. He laughed because he assumed it was a joke. Meiyun did not. 3 days later, she sold another route. Better than the first, but not miraculous. Enough to earn a substantial sum. Not enough to trigger obsession. She placed the money inside her space. Her hidden savings were becoming serious. Still not rich by future standards. But in 1972, compared with the village around her, she already possessed financial strength that would shock anyone who knew. She told no one. Not even her parents. Instead, she improved their life gradually. A little more oil in cooking, more eggs, occasional meat, new cloth before winter, a sturdier pair of shoes for Dazhong, books for Jianjun. Her family noticed. They asked questions. Meiyun answered with the same explanation. Mountain goods. Small exchanges, luck. Her father did not fully believe her. But he also understood she was not doing anything obviously reckless. One night, he sat beside her in the courtyard. The moon was thin. Jianjun had already gone to sleep. Shulan was mending clothes inside. De Jong spoke quietly. Your hiding's hands paused. Yes. He looked toward her. She expected another question. Instead, he said, don't tell me if telling me puts you in danger. Meiyun stared at him, her throat tightened. Father, he continued, but remember one thing. Money can make people foolish. Don't let it make you careless. She nodded. I won't. He looked at her for a long moment, then returned inside. Meiyun remained alone beneath the moon. In her first life, she had underestimated her father. She thought poverty made him weak. Now she understood. He had simply been trapped by circumstances. This time she would give him choices too. Weeks passed. Autumn deepened. The village entered a busier agricultural period. Meiyun still performed enough visible work to avoid suspicion. She earned work points, helped her parents, gathered firewood, occasionally joined women digging sweet potatoes. She deliberately preserved the image of an ordinary, hard-working village woman. But whispers followed her. She looks healthier. She always has something to trade. Her parents eat better now. Maybe the mountain really is generous this year. Maybe she has relatives helping her. No one knew. That was exactly how she wanted it. Then one afternoon, Sun Yulan came running toward the meeting alley. She looked frightened. Don't go to the canteen today. Meiyun stopped. Why questions? What kind? Someone asked where the eggs and vegetables were coming from. Meiyun's mind sharpened instantly. Who? Yulan shook her head. I don't know. Maybe someone from market administration. Maybe someone reported us. Meiyun did not panic. Panic destroyed judgment. She asked, did anyone mention my name? I don't think so. Think carefully. Zhou knows your first name. Does she know my village? No good. Meiyun immediately changed plans. No deliveries for 10 days. 10 days? Yes, but they'll find another supplier. Then let them. Yulan looked frustrated. We can earn. Meiyun cut her off. Freedom doesn't. That ended the discussion. For 10 days, she sold almost nothing in the county. Instead, she shifted goods through Dr. He's network in smaller amounts. She focused on herbs, low volume, high value, easy to conceal. She also spent time studying the county itself. Roads, warehouses, the bus station, the location of future commercial streets she remembered from decades later. She stood one afternoon beside a muddy road that looked completely unimportant. Children passed with baskets. A cart creaked by. Nothing suggested future wealth. But Meiyun remembered. 20 years later, shops would line this road. 30 years later, property here would be worth more than entire village households could imagine. She looked at the mud beneath her shoes. Land, that was the future. But the future could not be purchased yet in the way she remembered. So she stored the knowledge. Opportunity had seasons. Plant too early and seeds rotted. Plant too late and others harvested first. She only needed timing. On the 11th day, Yulan returned. The situation had cooled. No one had asked again. Deliveries resumed, smaller than before, more careful. Meiyun learned a valuable lesson. A business could not depend on one route, so she expanded sideways. Not more volume, more channels. Dr. He connected her with people who needed medicinal herbs. Yulan remained useful for food. A distant relative of Zhou worked near a transport station and occasionally needed portable food for drivers. Peanuts, boiled eggs, dried sweet potatoes. Meiyun began supplying tiny amounts. Then something unexpected happened. One driver named Han Sheng noticed her dried sweet potatoes. These are good. Meiyun nodded. My family makes them. Can you get more? How much? Too much. Half, she hesitated deliberately. Maybe. He lowered his voice. I drive between the county and provincial outskirts. Workers buy food on the road. Her mind moved instantly. Transport routes, mobile demand. Goods leaving the county without her traveling, useful, dangerous, potentially powerful. She agreed to a small trial. Han Sheng sold everything. The next week, he wanted twice as much. Meiyun refused. He looked annoyed. Why? Supply is limited, he laughed. Then find more, she smiled. Maybe next month. The truth was almost absurd. Inside her farming space, sweet potatoes covered rows of storage shelves, but she understood leverage. Never let customers know your well has no bottom. Winter approached. Meiyun's hidden fortune grew. Her family became stronger. Jinjun gained weight. Julan's coughing episodes decreased after Meiyun quietly mixed diluted spring water into the household water jar. De Zhong's chronic back pain improved. Meiyun herself changed most noticeably. Her face gained color. Her hair became glossy. Her skin looked almost luminous, compared with women who survived on coarse grain and exhaustion. She became careful with spring water after neighbors commented. Too much improvement was suspicious. Then Zhao Guoqiang returned. It happened on a gray afternoon. Snow threatened from heavy clouds. Meiyun was carrying firewood toward her parents' house when she saw him standing beside the village road. He looked different. Not successful, not triumphant, tired. His coat was dirty, his cheeks hollowed. The confidence he carried when leaving had faded. Meiyun stopped several steps away. Guochang looked at her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then his eyes moved over her. Her healthy face, straight posture. Clean clothes, he seemed confused. You've been eating well. Meiyun almost laughed. Is that why you're here? He looked away. No, where's Chen Lihua? His expression hardened. Why do you care? I don't, she adjusted the firewood bundle. Then move, he stepped into her path. Wait. Meiyun's eyes narrowed. What? Things in the county didn't work out. Not my problem. He frowned. You don't even want to know what happened? No, that answer hurt his pride. She could see it. He had returned expecting curiosity, maybe sympathy, maybe secret satisfaction. Anything that proved she still cared. Instead, Meiyun treated his failure like rain falling in another village. He lowered his voice. Li Hua left. Meiyun blinked. That was earlier than expected. With who? His jaw tightened. Someone from a factory. Meiyun nearly smiled. History was changing. In the first life, Chen Lihua remained beside Guochang long enough to enjoy his eventual rise. But perhaps because Guochang left too early this time, before securing stable work, she lost patience. Interesting. Very interesting. Guochang continued. She used me. Meiyun looked at him, and his expression became ugly. You were right about her. No, Meiyun shook her head. You were right about her when you chose her. What? You said she understood you. He stared. You said she respected you. His face darkened. You said she was gentle. Meiyun smiled. So what exactly are you doing here? His voice became quiet. Come home. For one second the world seemed silent. Meiyun looked at him, then she laughed. Not cruelly. Not loudly, but with genuine disbelief. Guochang's face flushed. What's funny, you? She shifted the firewood. You left me for another woman. She abandoned you. Now you think returning is a favor. His jaw tightened. We are still husband and wife, not in any way that matters. The formal process wasn't completed. Then complete it. He stared. Meiyun stepped closer. You chose her. Now live with the consequences. His eyes changed. Maybe even fear. Because for the first time he understood something. Meiyun had not been waiting. She had not collapsed. She had not become poorer. She looked better without him. That realization wounded him more deeply than any insult. He grabbed coming home. Meiyun looked down. Remove your hand. No. He tightened his grip. The old Guochang expected strength to end arguments. But he had no idea what spring water had done to Meiyun's body. She rotated her wrist, caught his thumb, shifted her weight. Guochang gasped. A second later, his arm was twisted behind his back. He bent forward. Meiyun held him there with one hand. His face turned red with humiliation. Let go. Several villagers nearby stopped walking. Their eyes widened. Meiyun leaned closer. Never touch me without permission again. Then she released him. Guochang stumbled forward. He turned around, stunned. Meiyun picked up her firewood. Anything else? His face became dark with rage. You think you're better than me now? Meiyun looked at him. Yes, the answer came so naturally that even she almost smiled. Not because of money. Not because of the farming space. Because she had finally learned to live without begging. Guochang looked around. People were watching. Humiliation burned across his face. He lowered his voice. You'll regret humiliating me. Meiyun stepped past him. Then become someone worth regretting. She walked away. Behind her, Guochang stood frozen. That evening she learned more. His county work had failed. He had spent most of the money he took. Chen Lihua became frustrated. Then she met a factory clerk with better prospects. She left Guochang. Simple. Brutal. Almost poetic. Lu Shufan immediately began telling everyone that Meiyun should forgive him. After all, he had returned. As though returning after betrayal erased the betrayal. Meiyun ignored her. Then something else happened. 2 days later, Zhao Guochang came to the Lin house again. This time, he was not angry. A small bag of brown sugar, cloth. 2 apples, expensive by village standards. Zulin looked uncomfortable. Dazhong looked annoyed. Meiyun stood in the doorway. Guochang placed the items on the table. I brought these for you. Take them back. His expression tightened. May know. At least listen. She crossed her arms. Speak took a breath. I made mistakes, true, he winced. I was confused. I thought Li Hua. I don't care what you thought. He stopped. Meiyun looked at the gifts. Is that all? He shook his head. I found another possible job. In the county? Good luck. His frustration appeared again. Why are you acting like this? Like what? Like I'm a stranger. You chose to become one. He looked toward her parents, then lowered his voice. People say you're making money. There it was. Meiyun's eyes became cold. Not guilt, not longing. Money rumors had reached him. Maybe someone mentioned her improved household. Maybe he saw her clothes. Maybe he noticed her parents' food. Whatever the source, Guoqiang's interest suddenly made perfect sense. How much? Meiyun asked. He frowned. What? How much do people say I'm making? I don't know. Then why ask? I'm your husband, no. His face hardened. Stop saying that. Meiyun smiled. Then stop proving me right. Guoqiang looked around the house. His eyes paused on Jianjun's books. The new fabric, the sturdy shoes near the wall, small changes. But enough. He understood. Something had changed financially. His voice softened. Meiyun, if you're earning money, we should build together. We? She almost laughed. When I had nothing, you left. Now that I have something, suddenly there is a we. He flushed. That's not fair. Fair? She stepped closer. You want fair? Her voice lowered. Then return every grain you took, every yuan, every humiliation. Every night I went hungry while your mother fed you first. Every time my parents gave food to your household, return all of it. Then talk to me about fair. He said nothing, because he could not. Meiyun pointed toward the door. Take your gifts. Leave. He did not move. Then Da Zhang stood. You heard her. Guoqiang looked at him. Father, don't call me that. The old man's voice was calm. You made your choice. Now respect hers. That struck harder than shouting. Guoqiang picked up the gifts. At the doorway, he looked back. This isn't over. Meiyun met his eyes. For me, it already is. He left. That night, Meiyun entered her farming space. She walked through rows of grain until she reached the farmhouse. Then she took out the hidden cash she had accumulated. She counted slowly, twice. Then again. The amount was enough for the next step. Not wealth, but seed capital. She had spent months surviving quietly, learning, building networks, testing markets. Now the foundation was ready, and history was moving. She remembered that in the coming years, opportunities would slowly widen. People who prepared early would leap ahead. People who mocked small trade would later beg for access to it. She folded the money carefully, then looked across the endless fields. Eggs had started everything. Herbs accelerated it. Transport networks would expand it. But her real fortune would not come from selling baskets forever. She needed control, storage, information. Eventually property. Eventually businesses. Eventually land. She smiled. Zhao Guoqiang thought she had become richer than before. He had no idea. Meiyun was not trying to become comfortable. She was preparing to become untouchable. Then a sudden sound came from inside the farmhouse. A soft mechanical click. Meiyun froze. She had never heard it before. She turned toward the far wall. A wooden door she had assumed was decorative slowly opened by itself. Behind it was another room, dark. Silent, she stepped closer. The moment she crossed the threshold, light appeared overhead. Shelves lined the walls. On the central table lay several objects she had never seen in the space before. Old books, metal tools, sealed seed packets, and one thick ledger. Meiyun, her breath stopped. It was not merely a farming record. It contained information about crop cycles inside the space, medicinal aging rates, soil enhancement, animal reproduction, storage preservation. Then she reached the final pages. There were notes describing something far more valuable. The space could gradually expand. Not just farmland, functions processing, grinding grain, drying goods, preserving meat, producing fertilizer, even improving seed quality across generations. Meiyun's fingers trembled. Until now, she thought heaven had given her endless food. She had been wrong. It had given her an entire private agricultural industry. And suddenly the future she imagined became much larger. She did not have to sell raw grain forever. She could eventually sell flour, oil, dried foods, preserved food seeds, medicinal products. Everything could begin inside a world no competitor could enter. Meiyun closed the ledger. Outside, golden wheat moved beneath an invisible breeze. For the first time since her rebirth, even she felt slightly overwhelmed by the scale of what was possible. Then she smiled. Good. If fate intended to compensate her for one ruined lifetime, she would not be modest about collecting. And somewhere outside that space, Zhao Guoqiang still believed a bag of brown sugar might win her back. He had no idea that by the time he understood what she had become, he would no longer be standing beside a poor wife. He would be standing beneath the shadow of an empire. The new processing room changed everything. Until that night, Meiyun had thought like a survivor, then like a traitor. Now, for the first time, she began thinking like an owner. An owner did not simply ask what could be sold today. An owner asked what could be controlled tomorrow. The following morning, she tested the oil press. She poured in a small basket of peanuts harvested from the farming space. The machine was simple enough that even someone without technical training could understand it. Within minutes, clear golden peanut oil flowed into a ceramic container. Meiyun stared at it. Oil. In the village, cooking oil was used carefully enough that every spoonful mattered. A household could stretch one bottle for weeks. Yet inside her space, peanuts could be grown repeatedly, harvested rapidly, and pressed into oil whenever she wished. She dipped one finger into the fresh oil, fragrant, clean. Better than much of what she remembered buying decades later. Then she tested the grain mill. Wheat became flour, corn became meal, rice could be polished. Sweet potatoes could be dried, beans could be ground. The possibilities multiplied faster than she could organize them. Raw ingredients were cheap, processed goods were more valuable. Convenience itself had value. That was a principle she had only understood after living through later decades. People did not merely pay for food. They paid for saved time, better quality, consistency, packaging, trust. In 1972, most of those ideas had not yet transformed rural life. But Meiyun had already seen the world they would create. She immediately stopped herself from becoming too excited. Not now. Selling homemade oil in large quantities would invite questions. So would flour. So would unusually polished rice. The processing room was a weapon for the future. For the present, she used it only for her family. That evening, Sholin poured a spoonful of fresh peanut oil into the wok. The aroma filled the kitchen. Her mother froze. "Where did you get this?" Meiyun answered without hesitation. "Exchanged herbs for it." Sholin looked at the oil. "This is too good." Meiyun smiled. "Then use less." Jianjun leaned over the table. "Use more." His mother slapped the back of his head. "You think oil grows on trees?" Meiyun nearly laughed. "Not trees, peanuts." And in her world, nearly endlessly. The family meal that evening was simple. Stir-fried greens, egg, sweet potato. But because of the oil, everything tasted richer. Jianjun ate until Julin threatened to hide the bowl. Meiyun watched them quietly. These small moments mattered more than money. Her mother no longer divided one egg among 4 people. Her father no longer pretended he was not hungry. Her brother no longer stared at other households during festivals. This was wealth too. Then winter arrived. The first heavy snow covered the village roads in white. Work slowed. Travel became difficult. Food became even more precious. And winter exposed poverty without mercy leaked. Firewood disappeared quickly. Children coughed. Old people stayed beneath quilts because heating rooms properly was expensive. Meiyun prepared early. She had stored firewood, bought coal in small amounts, kept medicine, filled hidden jars with grain. Of course, she could have fed the Lin family like rich people. She did not. Visibility remained dangerous. Instead, she improved their diet just enough. More sweet potatoes, occasional meat, a little flour, eggs twice a week, diluted spring water in soup. Her parents became healthier while appearing merely fortunate. Then one night, a child began screaming outside. Meiyun rushed to the door. A neighbor woman stood in the snow carrying her 6-year-old son. The boy's face was red with fever. "Please." The woman was crying. "Doctor, is too far. The road is covered." Shulan immediately brought them inside. Meiyun touched the boy's forehead. Burning. She remembered the medicines she had stored. More importantly, she remembered the spring. For one dangerous moment, she considered giving him pure spring water. No, too obvious. She mixed a tiny amount into boiled water and gave him only enough to sip. Then, she provided ordinary fever medicine she had acquired from Dr. He hours past. The fever slowly broke. By dawn, the boy was sleeping. His mother sobbed with relief. She grabbed Meiyun's hands. "I'll repay you." "No." "I will. Bring firewood when you can." The woman nodded repeatedly. But not as a miracle. Meiyun had medicine. That was all. Still, something changed. People began seeing the Lin household as prepared. Reliable. A place where someone might have an extra needle, a bit of medicine, a handful of dried vegetables, not rich, useful. Meiyun understood the importance immediately. Trust was another kind of capital. She began building it carefully. Never enough generosity to appear strange. Never enough refusal to appear selfish. If a neighbor needed a little salt, she might help. If an elderly woman needed herbs, Meiyun sometimes obtained them through Dr. He. If someone asked for large amounts, she declined. Boundaries created respect. Then Zhao Guoqiang made his next mistake. He began gambling. At first, only small games with village men during winter evenings. Cards, tiny amounts, then more. He had returned from the county humiliated. Chen Lihua had abandoned him. His work prospects failed. And worst of all, his former wife seemed happier without him. Men like Guo Qiang could tolerate hardship. What they could not tolerate was feeling small. Gambling gave him temporary victories, temporary respect, temporary excitement. Then it took money. Lu Shifin came to the Lin house one afternoon. Her face was tight. Meiyun was repairing a basket. What? Lu Shufin looked toward Shulin, who was inside, then lowered her voice. Guoqiang needs money, Meiyun continued, weaving bamboo. Then he should earn it. He's your husband. No. Stop saying that. Meiyun looked up. Then stop coming here. Lu Shufin's face reddened. He owes someone. How much? Her mother-in-law hesitated. That hesitation told Meiyun it was serious. How much? Lu Shufin finally named the amount. Meiyun almost laughed. It was not enormous compared with her hidden savings, but for a village household it was painful. Gambling? Lu Shufin's eyes shifted. Meiyun smiled. Of course, he made one mistake. He's under pressure. He made many mistakes. Lu Shufin stepped closer. You have money, so that was it. Rumors again. Meiyun put down the basket. Who told you? People see you traveling to the county. People see your family eating better. That means nothing. You bought books for Jianjun. Yes. You bought fabric. Yes. Then you have money a little. Lu Shufin's voice softened unnaturally. Help him once. Meiyun looked at her. Would you have helped my mother when she needed medicine? The question came from another lifetime. Lu Shufin frowned. What are you talking about? Meiyun remembered. Her mother burning with fever. Her own desperate visit to the Zhao household. 2 yuan. That was all she had begged for. Lu Shufin had refused, said the Zhao family money belonged to the Zhao family. Shulin died weeks later. Not only because of those 2 yuan, but Meiyun never forgot. Now she looked at Lu Shufin. Your family taught me something important. What? Everyone should solve their own problems. Lu Shufin's face hardened. You cold-hearted woman, Meiyun smiled. I learned from experts. Then she picked up the basket again. Lu Shufin left cursing. 2 days later, Guoqiang came himself. He did not ask politely. You gave money to your parents but refused to help me? Meiyun stared at him. They are my family. I am your family. No. He clenched his fists. You think separating socially means you can erase everything? The formal paperwork still. Then finish it. His mouth closed. She continued. You keep using unfinished paperwork as a rope around my neck. So let's cut it. Tomorrow. He looked startled. What? We go to the proper office. We complete whatever procedures are required. No more ambiguity. Guoqiang's expression changed. He had not expected that, because unfinished status benefited him. It allowed him to claim rights when convenient. Responsibility never seemed to follow. Meiyun stepped closer. You want to gamble? You want debt? Take debt. You want another woman? Choose another woman. But none of those choices will be paid for by me. His voice became colder. You really won't help? No, he stared at her. Then someday you'll need me. Meiyun almost smiled. No, someday you'll need me much more than you do now. He left the next day. Unsurprisingly, he did not appear for the paperwork. Coward. Meiyun stopped chasing it. She documented everything she could. Witnesses. Separation, his departure, his relationship with Liwa, his refusal to settle. Her father helped. Dr. He suggested whom to speak with in the county. Slowly the ambiguity began closing. Not instantly, but permanently. Meanwhile, Meiyun's trade entered another stage. Han Sheng, the transport driver, returned with news. People at a roadside worksite wanted food. Not luxury, cheap-filling food, dried sweet potatoes. Peanut, corn cakes, boiled eggs when possible. How many P40? Meiyun's mind sharpened. Regular demand, mobile workers, less village visibility. Good. She agreed to supply small batches, then used the processing room to improve consistency. Dried sweet potatoes cut evenly. Peanuts roasted uniformly. Cornmeal fine enough to make better cakes. She still claimed everything came from relatives and mountain exchanges. Han Sheng did not care. The workers cared even less. They wanted food that tasted good and arrived on time. Within 1 month, Meiyun's hidden cash increased significantly. Then she made her first serious strategic decision. She stopped thinking only about cash. She started buying durable goods, not luxury items. Tools, containers, cloth, needles, salt, soap, basic medicine, seeds from outside varieties, anything that could become useful or valuable later. Money could lose purchasing power. Goods could solve immediate problems. Information could create future ones. She also began recording every transaction in a private ledger inside the farming space. Date, buyer, price, profit, reliability. She rated each contact mentally. Sun Yulan, useful talkative. Zhou Fen, reliable, higher visibility. Dr. He, Highly trusted low volume, high value network. Hansheng, expanding opportunity, transport exposure. Must remain cautious. Meiyun looked at the pages. This was no longer random selling. It was a system, and systems could grow. Then spring arrived. Snow melted. Fields awakened. Meiyun stood one morning outside the Lin house and realized nearly a full year had passed since rebirth. 1 year. In her first life, she had spent that year trying to preserve a marriage. This time she had built savings, trade routes, family security, medicinal connections, transport contacts, a processing advantage no one knew existed, and most importantly, self-respect. Then Chen Lihua returned. No warning. No announcement. She simply appeared at the village entrance wearing better clothes than before. A fitted jacket. A small bag. People immediately gathered. Meiyun heard about it from Jianjun. Sister, what? That woman is back. Which woman? He rolled his eyes. The one who ran away with your husband. Meiyun smiled. Chen Lihua. Where's Guoqiang? Already there. Of course, Meiyun did not rush to watch. She continued sorting beans. You don't want to see? No. He looked disappointed. I do, then go. He ran. 30 minutes later, he returned breathless. You should have gone. Why? Meiyun paused. Lihua slapped Guoqiang? Yes, in front of everyone. Interesting. Jianjun continued excitedly. He asked her why she came back. She said she came for her mother. Then he accused her of leaving him for some factory man. And? She said he was useless. Meiyun laughed. Jianjun grinned. Then she said something else. What? His expression changed. She asked about you. Meiyun's hand stopped. About me? She asked if you were making money. That was different. Very different. Why would Lihua care? Jianjun shrugged. She asked whether you had connections in the county too. Meiyun's eyes narrowed. Connections. Not husband. Not gossip business. Something had changed. Later that afternoon, Chen Lihua appeared at the Lin house. Meiyun was not surprised. She poured tea. Lihua sat across from her. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Lihua smiled. You look good, so do you. County life suited me. Apparently, a shadow crossed Lihua's face. Meiyun noticed. So perhaps not. Lihua touched the cup. I heard you're doing business. No, trading a few things. Same difference. Not really. Lihua leaned closer. What do you sell? Why? Meiyun smiled. You're not curious. Lihua's expression became slightly colder. Fine. I have an opportunity. There it was. What kind? A factory contact. Meiyun said nothing. Lihua continued. A man I know can obtain defective fabric. Small flaws cheap. It can be resold. Meiyun's mind moved quickly. Defective factory goods did circulate informally. Some opportunities were real. Some were traps. Who? Lihua smiled. You don't need his name yet. Then I don't need the opportunity. Lihua frowned. Sit. No, without names, quantities, prices, and risk, you're not offering business. You're selling mystery. Meiyun walked toward the door. Lihua's voice sharpened. You're different now. Yes, why? Meiyun looked back. Because starving once is enough. Lihua could not understand the true meaning. But the words unsettled her. Then she said something unexpected. Guoqiang is trying to get you back, I know. He still cares. He cares that I no longer need him. Lihua laughed bitterly. You're right. Meiyun studied her. That bitterness was genuine, interesting again. Why did you leave him? Lihua's eyes hardened. Because I realized he had no plan. He thought going to the county was enough. He expected luck to do everything. Meiyun nearly smiled. For once they agreed. Lihua continued. The man I met afterward was worse there. The failure. Meiyun understood. Chen Lihua had returned not because she missed the village. She had run out of better options. And now she saw Meiyun rising, so she wanted access. Meiyun sat again. Tell me about the fabric. Lihua's eyes brightened. Not because Meiyun trusted her. Because enemies could sometimes bring useful information. Lihua explained. A textile worker could divert flawed fabric that otherwise had little value. The material could be cut, repaired, resold. The price she quoted was attractive. Too attractive, Meiyun asked. Why doesn't he sell it himself? Lihua hesitated. He needs someone outside the factory, of course. Risk transfer. Meiyun understood immediately. The factory worker wanted money. The outside buyer carried exposure. She shook her head. No. Lihua looked irritated. You haven't even seen it. I don't need to. Why? Because the profit is too high for the explanation you gave. Silence. Meiyun continued. Either the goods are not what you say, or the risk is larger than you say. Lihua's expression changed. You think you're clever now? No. I think I've already paid too much tuition in life. Lihua stood. Fine. Forget it. She turned toward the door, then stopped. One more thing. Meiyun waited. Someone in the county is asking about the woman who supplies Han Sheng. Cold moved through Meiyun's body. Her face did not change. Who? Li Hua smiled. Now you're curious. Who? I don't know. That's a lie. Li Hua walked toward the doorway. Maybe take the fabric deal. Maybe I'll remember more. Meiyun's eyes became ice. Do not threaten me. Li Hua glanced back. I'm helping you. No, you're testing whether I scare easily. For the first time, Li Hua looked uncertain. Meiyun stepped closer. Tell whoever is asking that Han Sheng buys from many villages. No single supplier. Li Hua said nothing. And if you use my name to protect yourself from whatever foolishness you're involved in. Meiyun smiled. I'll make sure Guoqiang becomes the least unpleasant mistake you ever made. Li Hua stared at her, then left. Meiyun closed the door. Her calm expression vanished. Someone was asking questions. This was no longer rumor. This was risk. She immediately entered the farming space. She opened her ledger. Han Sheng transport route, roadside workers. Recent increased volume, too visible. She crossed out the next delivery. Then another. She reduced Yulan's allocation. Paused Zhou Fen. Only Dr. Yi's channel remained. Low frequency, high trust. For 2 weeks, Meiyun nearly disappeared from informal trade. Income dropped. She did not care. Cash could wait. Safety could not. Then Han Sheng came directly to the village. That had never happened before. He found Meiyun near the field path. You stopped supplying. Yes. No goods. He frowned. Don't lie. Meiyun looked at him. Careful. Han Sheng lowered his voice. Someone approached me. Who? A man named Xu Jinhai. Never heard of him. He's involved in transport. What does he want you? Meiyun's eyes sharpened. Why? Han Sheng looked around, then whispered. Because he says anyone who can supply food as consistently as you can must have access to a source bigger than one village family. Meiyun became completely still. Han Sheng continued. He wants to meet. No. Then why tell me? Because he also said something else. What? Han Sheng swallowed. He knows your name. The wind moved through the young spring wheat. Meiyun said nothing. For the first time since rebirth, someone outside her small circle had looked past the baskets, past the eggs, past the sweet potatoes. Someone had begun searching for the source. And if Xu Jinhai was as connected as Han Sheng implied, disappearing might no longer be enough. Meiyun looked toward the distant county road, then smiled slowly. Fine. If someone wanted to hunt for the hand behind the supply, she would finally learn whether she had built enough power to make the hunter regret finding her. Meiyun did not meet Xu Jinhai immediately. A person who rushed toward danger merely because someone called his name was not brave. He was convenient. So Meiyun spent 3 days learning. Han Sheng knew little. Xu Jinhai was involved in transport, warehouse access, and the quiet movement of goods between counties. He was not a government official, not a factory leader, and not a simple trader either. He belonged to that gray space where information itself became currency. Drivers knew him. Warehouse workers knew him. Canteen purchasers knew him. And apparently, Xu had begun noticing an unusual pattern. Better food appearing in small quantities. Fresh eggs, uniform dried sweet potatoes, good peanuts. Vegetables too consistent for ordinary mountain gathering. None of the volumes were large. That was exactly what interested him. A careless smuggler flooded a market. A serious supplier tested one. Xu understood the difference. That meant Meiyun could not treat him like an idiot. She chose the meeting place herself. Dr. He's courtyard. Daylight, no private room, no secrets. Xu arrived shortly after noon. He was around 40, medium height. Plain clothing. Nothing memorable. That alone made Meiyun cautious. Powerful fools liked looking powerful. Useful men often preferred looking ordinary. Xu sat across from her. So you're Lin Meiyun. So you're the man asking too many questions. Dr. He nearly choked on his tea. Xu laughed. Why did you want to meet me? Because your goods are good, then buy them. I want more. No. He studied her. You answered quickly. Because the question is simple. Xu leaned back. 20 eggs becomes 40. 40 becomes 100. 1 sack of dried food becomes 10. That's how money is made. That's how attention is made. His smile faded slightly. Meiyun continued. If I had the supply you imagine, why would I hand it to someone I met today? Xu tapped the table. Because I have routes. I have goods. Because I can move products beyond this county. I can find buyers you will never reach alone. That was probably true, which made him valuable and dangerous. Made you want regular food supply. How regular? Enough for several transport teams and work sites. No. Vegetable. Eggs? No. Then why meet me? To understand what you're looking for. He stared at her, then laughed again. Dr. He quietly stood. I'll make more tea. Neither stopped him. Once he disappeared inside, Sue lowered his voice. Fine, I want a reliable source. Meiyun nodded. And I want a reliable route there. For the first time, both stopped pretending. Shu's eyes sharpened. How much can you provide? Not enough for you to ask where it comes from. His mouth curved. You're asking me to ignore the most important question. Yes. And why would I? Because I won't ask how some of your goods move without appearing in obvious records. Silence longer this time. Shu looked at her differently. Meiyun remained calm. She did not actually know his methods. She did not need to. Anyone operating his kind of network possessed secrets. The point was to establish balance. No one investigated too deeply when both sides benefited from silence. Finally, small trial. How small? He gave her a quantity. Meiyun cut it in half. He smiled. Done. The first transaction took place 6 days later. Eggs, peanuts, dried sweet potatoes. Nothing special. Nothing that could expose her farming space. Shu inspected the goods, consistent. Exactly. Can you do this again? Maybe. He laughed. You enjoy that word. It keeps people patient. Within 3 months, Shu became her most important commercial connection. Not her friend. Not someone she trusted completely. A connection. That distinction mattered. Through him, Meiyun learned how demand changed between counties. Drivers needed portable food. Factories needed reliable ingredients. Workers paid for things that saved time. Families with money wanted better quality. And medicinal products could travel farther than ordinary vegetables because small quantities held more value. She adjusted. Less bulk, higher margin, more discretion. The farming space allowed her to produce endlessly. Discipline taught her not to. Years began moving. Each year brought changes, some small, some dangerous. Meiyun never tried to outrun history. She moved just ahead of it. She built relationships. Learned bookkeeping, markets, saved cash. Stored goods, improved seed varieties inside the space, tested oils. Flour, dried foods, medicinal herbs. She also did something no one around her fully understood. She kept learning. Jianjin brought home textbooks. Meiyun read them too. Basic accounting. Agricultural science. Later, business materials whenever she could find them. She had memories of the future. But memories were not education. Knowing that markets would expand was different from knowing how to manage workers, negotiate contracts, calculate margins, or maintain inventories. So she learned. And while she learned, her family changed. Jianjin returned to more serious study. When educational opportunities opened wider again, Meiyun pushed him harder than anyone. He complained. She ignored him. He eventually earned a place to continue his education. Hylan cried for 2 days. Dezong told everyone he had dust in his eyes. Meiyun quietly paid expenses that no one knew she could easily afford. Her parents stopped worrying about grain. Then stopped worrying about winter. Then stopped worrying about medicine. Their house improved gradually, roof first, walls second. Furniture later. Never overnight, never enough to create scandal. But every year better, and Zhao Guoqiang watched all of it. His life moved in the opposite direction. The gambling debt became larger before it became smaller. He tried county work, failed. Tried transport labor, quit, tried small exchanges. Lost money. Whenever opportunity appeared, he wanted results before discipline. Whenever profit appeared, he spent before reinvesting. Whenever failure came, someone else was responsible. Chen Liwa disappeared from the village again, then returned, then disappeared once more. Eventually, she married a factory worker in another county. That marriage was not the glorious future she once imagined. But by then, Meiyun no longer cared. Li Hua had stopped being an enemy years earlier. Enemies mattered only while they could still change your direction. By the late 1970s, the world around Meiyun began opening in ways she had been waiting for. Policies changed. Private initiatives slowly found more space. Markets expanded. The fear surrounding small trade shifted. Opportunities that once needed whispers began moving closer to daylight. That was when Meiyun stopped merely surviving history. She stepped into it. Her first legitimate business was modest. An agricultural product stall, eggs, peanuts, dried vegetables, cooking oil in limited quantities. Nothing glamorous. But unlike competitors, Meiyun had something no one else possessed. Absolute control over supply. If drought hurt crops outside, hers remained unaffected. If pests reduced yields, hers remained clean. If seasonal shortages increased prices, her storage space remained full. She never exploited shortages brutally. That would damage trust. Instead, she supplied consistently. Customers remembered. Then one stall became two. Two became a small storefront. The storefront became a purchasing operation. Xu Jinhai connected transport. Sun Yulan helped with local buyers. Zhou Fen, older and more experienced now, helped introduce canteen contracts. Dr. He remained her bridge into medicinal goods. Each person earned. That was important. Meiyun never built loyalty with promises. She built it with shared profit. By the early 1980s, people who once mocked her for leaving Zhao Guoqiang began referring to her differently. Boss Lin. At first, jokingly. Then seriously. She registered businesses when opportunities allowed, invested in equipment, bought legitimate supplies from farmers, so her own mysterious production never appeared as the sole source. That was one of her smartest decisions. The farming space became the hidden backbone, not the visible body. Outside farmers supplied real crops. Her company purchased them. Her space filled shortages, stabilized quality, and guaranteed volume. No one needed to know why Boss Lin's businesses somehow survived years that hurt everyone else. She built processing, flour, oil-dried foods, packaged agricultural products, then medicinal planting contracts, then transport partnerships, eventually warehouses. Every expansion followed the same principle. Control what others ignored before they realized it mattered. One afternoon in 1984, Meiyun stood outside a newly opened food processing workshop. Workers moved sacks through the doors. A painted sign displayed the company name, Lin Harvest Foods. Jianjun stood beside her wearing a clean shirt and glasses. He had returned after studying. He stared at the building. Sister, what? Do you remember when Mother screamed because you cracked 3 eggs into one meal? Meiyun laughed. Yes. He looked at the warehouse. Now we probably have more eggs inside than the entire village did back then. More. He shook his head. How did you do this? Meiyun looked toward the loading area. One basket at a time. Jianjun laughed. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. He never discovered the farming space. Neither did her parents. Meiyun sometimes wondered whether she should tell them. Every time she decided no. Some secrets did not become lighter when shared. They merely endangered more people. By then, Zhao Guoqiang had begun understanding exactly what he lost. He came to see her again. Not at her parents' house. At her office, the receptionist tried to stop him. Meiyun heard the argument and allowed him inside. He looked older than his years, not ruined. But worn, his hands were rough. His jacket faded. He stood awkwardly in front of a desk that cost more than everything their old household once owned. Meiyun continued reviewing invoices. What do you want? He stared around. This is yours? Yes. All of it? He swallowed. People said you're rich. People talk. He sat without permission. I heard you're opening another warehouse. Meiyun signed a document. Maybe. He watched her. Do you remember when we were married? Yes. The answer was flat. He seemed disappointed. I think about it sometimes. I don't. That hurt him. She could see it. Nothing. Not revenge. Not satisfaction. Nothing. Time had reduced him into what he always should have been. A lesson. Guoqiang lowered his voice. If I hadn't left, Meiyun finally looked up. But you did. He stopped, she continued. That's the problem with people who regret choices only after seeing the outcome. They pretend the choice never mattered. He looked down. I was young. So was I. I was foolish, yes. Li Hua manipulated me. That answer made him look up. Meiyun leaned back. She offered you what you wanted. Admiration. Excitement. An excuse to leave responsibility behind. You chose it. Do not insult both of us by pretending you were helpless. Guoqiang said nothing. Then he asked the question she knew had brought him there. Could we start again? Meiyun almost pitied him. Almost. No, what if I change? Change for yourself. He stared at her. There's no one else? There doesn't need to be. You never remarried. No, I. Meiyun smiled slightly. Because peace turned out to be very attractive. He lowered his head. For years, villagers had assumed her success would eventually lead her to some powerful husband. It did not. Meiyun had business partners, friends, employees, people she respected. She never again confused marriage with survival. Perhaps one day love would appear. Perhaps not. Her life no longer waited for it. Guoqiang stood slowly. At the door he turned. Do you hate me? Meiyun thought about the freezing room from her previous life. The broken roof, the empty grain jar, her dead child. Her mother's fever, 27 years of regret. Then she looked at the tired man standing before her. No, his expression changed, Meiyun continued. Hate would mean you're still important. He left without another word. That was the last time Zhao Guoqiang asked her to return. Years continued moving. Lin Harvest Foods expanded across the province, then beyond it. Meiyun invested early in land use opportunities when commercial development accelerated. She remembered which roads mattered, which districts would grow, which transportation hubs would transform nearby property. She never bought blindly. Memory gave clues. Research confirmed them. Some investments failed. That surprised people who later imagined she never made mistakes. Meiyun never minded failure. Her first life taught her the difference between losing money and losing yourself. Money could be earned again. She diversifying. Agricultural supply, warehousing, cold storage transport, medicinal products, later real estate tied to logistics and commercial corridors. The farming space expanded too. New rooms appeared as her agricultural activity deepened. Seed preservation, better storage, more processing equipment. She used its advantages quietly. Never enough to create impossible results. Always enough to survive ordinary problems better than competitors. By the 1990s, Lin Meiyun was no longer wealthy, only by village standards. She was wealthy by any standard that mattered. Yet every year she returned to the old Lin family home during the harvest season. Not because she needed crops, because she remembered hunger. One autumn evening, Zhulin sat beneath a tree eating a peach. Her hair had turned silver. Dezong slept nearby in a chair. Jianjin's children chased chickens through the yard. Meiyun placed a basket of fruit on the table. Her mother frowned. "You always bring too much," Meiyun smiled, "then eat too much." Shilin laughed. "You've been saying that for 20 years. And you've ignored me for 20 years. Mother and daughter looked toward the fields. Shilin spoke quietly. "I used to worry your life was ruined when you left Guoqiang. I know people said terrible things, I know. I thought you would be alone." Meiyun looked at the courtyard. Her father, her brother, children laughing. Workers from nearby farms greeting her beyond the gate. Warehouses. Employees. Friends, a life built with her own hands. She smiled. "Am I?" Shulin looked around, then laughed at herself. No. Not even close. That night, Meiyun entered the farming space alone. Decades had passed outside. Inside, the spring still flowed exactly as it had on the day she discovered it. The wheat remained golden. Fruit trees remained heavy. Black soil stretched beneath the bright sky. She walked to the first field where she had once cried while holding a grain of wheat. Back then, all she wanted was food. Enough to never starve, such a small dream. Such an enormous beginning. She knelt and pressed her palm against the soil. The leaf-shaped mark still rested on her wrist. For years, she wondered why she had been reborn, why she had received the space, why heaven had chosen to return her to the exact year before everything fell apart. She never found an answer. Eventually, she stopped needing one. A second life was not valuable because it explained the first. It was valuable because she used it differently. In her first life, she believed endurance was virtue. So she endured hunger, betrayal, poverty, loneliness. In her second life, she learned something more important. Some suffering should not be endured. It should be left. Some people should not be forgiven endlessly. They should be removed from the path. Some opportunities should not be feared. They should be prepared for. And some doors did not open until you stopped begging someone else to unlock them. Years later, Zhao Guoqiang died quietly in a modest county apartment. Meiyun heard the news from someone else. She sent no flowers. She celebrated nothing. The debt had ended long before his life did. Chen Lihua lived an ordinary life. Sometimes difficult, sometimes comfortable. She and Meiyun never became friends. They never needed to. Xu Jinhai eventually became one of Meiyun's longest business partners. Sun Yulan opened a store of her own with money earned through years of trading. Zhou Fen retired comfortably. Dr. He lived long enough to see Meiyun fund a clinic in his name. Jianjun became the educated man poverty once nearly prevented him from becoming, and the Lin family never knew hunger again. On the 50th anniversary of her rebirth, Meiyun stood on the roof of one of her company's largest agricultural centers. Below her stretched warehouses, greenhouses, facilities, trucks, workers. The company employed thousands. Its products traveled farther than she ever imagined during that first secret egg sale. A young manager approached. "Chairwoman Lin, the reporters are waiting." Meiyun smiled. "What do they want?" "They want to know the secret of your success." She looked toward the horizon. That question had followed her for decades. Some believed it was timing. Some said luck. Some said political instinct. Some said impossible discipline. All were partly correct. None knew about the endless fields hidden beyond the leaf mark on her wrist. But even the farming space was not the whole answer. Another person might have received it and destroyed themselves through greed. Another might have exposed it. Another might have become lazy because abundance seemed guaranteed. Meiyun had nearly starved once. She understood the value of every grain. "Tell them something simple," she said. The manager waited. Meiyun looked down at the vast enterprise below. Tell them I started because I was hungry. The manager laughed. That's all? That's enough. He left. Meiyun remained alone. The wind moved gently across the roof. For one brief moment, memory pulled her backward. A broken house. Snow falling through the roof. An old woman dying beside an empty grain jar. Then the image disappeared. Meiyun touched the leaf mark. She had once died believing Zhao Guoqiang had taken her entire life with him. But he had never possessed that power. She had simply handed it to him. This time she took it back. She took back her food, her money, her family, her future, her dignity, her choices. And once she stopped waiting for a man to save her, she discovered something almost terrifying. She had never needed saving. She needed a chance. Heaven gave her one. Meiyun turned toward the stairs, where her family and employees were waiting below. Behind her, the sun sank over thousands of acres of farmland. Inside the hidden space, another harvest ripened. Outside it, an empire carried her name. And somewhere between those two worlds stood the woman who had once been abandoned to starve. Not starving, not abandoned, not afraid. Rich enough that money had long stopped being the measure. Powerful enough that revenge had become unnecessary. Free enough that the past could no longer reach her. Lin Meiyun smiled and walked forward. This time there would be no third life. She had finally lived this one correctly.